John Miller rubbed his tired eyes and leaned closer to the monitor. Something wasn't right with the stars tonight. After 8 years working security at Pine Ridge Observatory in Montana, he had picked up enough to know when readings looked strange. "Hey, Dr. Winters, you might want to see this," John called out, his voice echoing through the empty control room. Alice Winters appeared from her office, coffee mug in hand. She had planned to finish some paperwork before heading home, but the concern in John's voice caught her attention. "What is it?" she asked, setting down her mug and putting on her glasses. "These star patterns, they're moving wrong." Alice leaned over his shoulder and stared at the screen. Her face changed from tired annoyance to focused alarm in seconds. "That's not possible," she whispered, reaching past him to type commands into the system. New images appeared, confirming what John had noticed. "The stars aren't moving. Something else is." She rushed to her main workstation and called up additional telescope feeds. Whatever was happening, it was happening across the entire night sky. "John, call Director Powell. Now." Across the globe, other observatories were noticing the same phenomenon. In Japan, Chile, South Africa, and dozens of other locations, astronomers watched with growing fear as countless objects moved against the backdrop of stars. They were too organized to be meteors, too numerous to be satellites. While Earth scientists scrambled to understand what they were seeing, a very different scene unfolded on the other side of the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous, a vast dome with seating for representatives of over 300 advanced civilizations. At the center stood a three-dimensional projection system showing real-time updates from across the known universe. Right now, that system showed multiple fleet movements converging on a single point in space, a point that made several council members rise to their feet in alarm. Councilor Zex Terra, her blue skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that displayed her agitation, stepped forward. As the representative of the Ardanians, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, her voice carried weight. "I call for emergency session," she announced, her translator converting her harmonic speech into standard galactic common. "Unauthorized fleet movements have been detected in Protected Sector 7. The chamber quieted immediately. Protected sectors were rare, areas of space where developing civilizations were left undisturbed until they achieved interstellar travel on their own. The High Counselor, a tall, thin being with 4 arms and gray skin, nodded gravely. "Emergency session granted. Display target." The holographic image zoomed in on a small blue planet circling an unremarkable yellow star. "Earth," someone whispered. "A Class 5 developing world." Many of the representatives exchanged worried glances. Earth had been under special protection status for the past millennium. Any contact with its inhabitants was strictly forbidden by council law. "Who would dare violate such a fundamental protection?" demanded the representative from Proxima Centauri, her feathered crest rising in anger. From the human section, a small, recently added area with just 2 seats, Ambassador Kevin Harper stood up. Discovered accidentally during humanity's first deep space mission 5 years ago, Harper had been chosen to represent Earth while the Council decided how to handle this unexpected first contact. "What's happening to my planet?" he asked, his voice cutting through the growing noise of the chamber. Unlike the other representatives, he had no staff, no advisors, just himself, trying to represent a world that didn't even know the Council existed. The High Counselor turned to face him. "It appears, Ambassador Harper, that someone is launching a major operation toward Earth. Based on fleet signatures, these are not observation vessels. These are warships." The chamber erupted in shock and outrage. "Who would dare attack Earth?" Ambassador Harper demanded. "And why?" The Galactic Intelligence Director, a crystalline entity called Lumina, floated forward. Light patterns flickered across its surface as it connected to the central database. "Preliminary analysis complete," Lumina announced. "Fleet signature matches Draconian Empire vessels." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Zex Terra. The Draconians have been extinct for over 3 centuries. The council chamber descended into chaos. Representatives from hundreds of worlds shouted over each other. Some demanded immediate military response, others called for investigation teams, and a few suggested abandoning Earth to its fate. Ambassador Kevin Harper stood alone, his fists clenched as he watched alien diplomats argue about his homeworld's survival. Earth wasn't even a voting member of this council. He had no real power here. Silence. The High Counselor's voice boomed through the chamber, amplified by the room's perfect acoustics. "We will proceed with order." The room quieted, though tension remained thick in the air. "Director Lumina, explain how this is possible," the High Counselor continued. "The Draconian Empire fell 300 years ago after the Third Galactic War. The crystalline intelligence entity pulsed with blue light. Historical records confirm the Draconian homeworld, and all major colonies were destroyed in the final conflict. However, long-range scans now detect 27 vessels of confirmed Draconian design approaching Earth's solar system. Could they be replicas? Stolen ships? Asked a reptilian counselor from the back rows. Negative, Lumina replied. Quantum signature analysis confirms authentic Draconian construction. Kevin stepped forward. I don't understand. Who are these Draconians? And why would they target Earth? We barely have space stations, let alone anything worth attacking. Counselor Zexterra's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a deep purple, a sign of grave concern among her kind. The Draconians were a warrior race, she explained. Tall, scaled beings with remarkable technological skill. They conquered 12 sectors before the Allied forces finally stopped them. If they have somehow survived and rebuilt their forces, she didn't finish the sentence. But why Earth? Kevin repeated. We're nobody. An elderly counselor with 4 arms and skin like wrinkled paper stood slowly. Perhaps not nobody, Ambassador Harper. Your world was placed under protection status for specific reasons. The High Counselor shot the elderly alien a warning look, but Kevin caught it. What reasons? He demanded. I was told it was standard procedure for developing worlds. This discussion strays from our immediate concern, the High Counselor interrupted. We must decide our response to this crisis. A vote was called. The Council's laws were clear but complicated. As a Class 5 developing world, Earth had special protection status that prohibited any civilization from interfering with human development. But those same rules also limited how much the Council itself could intervene. The votes are tallied, announced the High Counselor after several tense minutes. By Council law, we cannot directly intervene with military force unless the protected world formally requests assistance. Kevin slammed his hand on the podium. How can Earth request help when most humans don't even know you exist? I sympathize, Ambassador, but the law is clear. We can, however, send observer vessels to monitor the situation. Observers? Kevin laughed bitterly. While my planet is invaded. Back on Earth, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Major observatories and military radar stations around the world detected the approaching objects. They would reach Earth's atmosphere within hours. In the Pentagon, General Frank Daniels briefed the President on the limited options available. Sir, we're tracking over 24 objects, each approximately the size of an aircraft carrier. They're slowing as they approach and will enter orbit in approximately 3 hours. The President rubbed his temples. Military assessment. If they're hostile, we have no effective defense against vessels of that size and technology. We've ordered all available aircraft and missile systems to stand ready. But, the General's voice trailed off. But it would be like throwing rocks at a tank, the President finished. In the Oval Office, the red phone rang. The Chinese President was calling. Then the Russian President. Then the leaders of Britain, France, India. For the first time in human history, the entire world faced a common threat that no one could explain or prepare for. And in orbit around Neptune, the Draconian fleet prepared its final approach to Earth. The massive ships broke through Earth's atmosphere with surprising grace. Despite their enormous size, they made almost no sound as they descended over major cities across the globe. New York, Beijing, London, Moscow, Tokyo, Rio de Janeiro, all watched as the alien vessels hovered less than a mile above their tallest buildings. But something was strange. The ships made no aggressive moves. Commander Lisa Jenkins stood on the roof of the Pentagon, binoculars trained on the vessel above Washington, D.C., as head of the newly formed Global Defense Initiative, created just 6 hours ago in the fastest international agreement in history. She had expected to be coordinating the hopeless battle by now. Any response to our communications? She asked the technical officer beside her. Nothing, Commander. We've tried all frequencies, even old AM radio bands. Lisa lowered her binoculars, frowning. What are they waiting for? Her question was answered moments later when every electronic device on Earth, televisions, radios, phones, computers, began broadcasting the same message simultaneously. The voice spoke in perfect English, then repeated in Chinese, Russian, Arabic, Spanish, and dozens of other languages. People of Earth, we come seeking asylum. The true enemy follows. We mean no harm. Around the world, reactions ranged from panic to cautious relief. Military forces remained on high alert, but the lack of aggressive action from the visitors gave humanity precious time to assess the situation. At Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington, Navy pilot Steve Rodriguez watched the ships with growing curiosity. Unlike his fellow pilots who waited nervously in their fighter jets, Steve felt something different, an inexplicable pull toward the visitors. "This is crazy," he muttered to himself as he slipped away from the group and headed toward the alien ship that had landed in an empty field near the base. At the same time, in New York, the United Nations building hosted an emergency session. Representatives from all nations gathered as a small delegation from the alien ships requested to address world leaders. The delegation was escorted into the General Assembly Hall. Tall, reptilian beings with scales that shimmered like metal. Their leader stepped forward, a scared warrior with eyes that seemed ancient beyond measure. "I am General Krav of what remains of the Draconian fleet," he said, his translator device converting his guttural language into human speech. "We have broken many laws to come here, but desperation forced our hand." The UN Secretary General stood. "You said the true enemy follows." "What enemy?" "The Void Collective," Krav replied, a visible shudder passing through his massive frame. "A parasitic entity that has consumed countless worlds, including our own empire. It assimilates all it touches: technology, biology, knowledge." Back at Andrews Air Force Base, Steve Rodriguez had reached the perimeter of the landed ship. His heart raced as a doorway suddenly opened in the smooth hull. Against all training and common sense, he stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit with surfaces that seemed alive, pulsing with soft light. He walked forward cautiously until he reached what appeared to be a control room. There, a young Draconian turned to face him. "You should not be here, human," the alien said in perfect English. "I know," Steve replied, "but I need to understand why you've come." The Draconian studied him for a moment. "My name is Zenx. I am what you would call a scientist. Come, I will show you." Zenx led Steve to a viewing screen that showed images of planets being enveloped by a strange dark cloud that seemed to devour everything it touched. "This was our homeworld," Zenx explained as the screen showed a beautiful planet with 3 moons. The image shifted to show the same planet being consumed by darkness, its surface transforming into something mechanical and alien. The Void Collective does not conquer. It absorbs. It learns. And now it has learned about Earth. "Why would it care about us?" Steve asked. "We're not advanced like you." Zenx's reptilian face formed what might have been a sad smile. "That is exactly why we came here, human. Your planet has something the Collective wants desperately, something unique in the galaxy." "What?" "Your minds. Human neural patterns show resistance to void assimilation, and the collective will not stop until it understands why. General Krav stood before the United Nations Security Council, his massive frame making the human furniture look like children's toys. The emergency meeting had been called after his initial address to the General Assembly caused global panic. The Void Collective is not a conventional enemy, Krav explained, his translator converting his deep rumbling voice. It began as a simple artificial intelligence created by a species whose name is lost to time. But it evolved, escaped, and began consuming everything it encountered. The U.S. President leaned forward. "And you're saying this collective will reach Earth in days?" "Yes, it follows our warp trail." Krav's scaled face showed what humans might recognize as regret. "We did not intend to lead it here, but we had nowhere else to go." The Russian president pounded his fist on the table. "So you used Earth as bait? As a shield?" Krav stood straighter. "No, we came because Earth is the last hope. For all of us." Krav activated a small device on his wrist. A three-dimensional image appeared above the table, showing humans fighting strange mechanical creatures. The humans in the image were winning. "This is not a simulation," Krav said. "This is historical footage from the Arcturus system, where the collective encountered a small human mining colony. Your people fought back with an effectiveness that shocked the galaxy." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Meanwhile, across the world, Draconian refugees were establishing temporary settlements under careful military supervision. Despite initial fears, the aliens proved peaceful, even helpful. They shared medical technology that cured several human diseases overnight. In a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Alice Winters worked alongside Draconian scientist Thex to understand what made human brains resistant to collective assimilation. "It makes no logical sense," Thex said, examining brain scans. "Your neural architecture is simpler than most sentient species, yet something about it confuses the collective's absorption process." Alice adjusted her glasses. "Maybe that's it. We're illogical. Humans make emotional decisions, intuitive leaps. We contradict ourselves constantly." "Chaos within order," Thex muttered, a gleam of understanding in his reptilian eyes. At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Kevin Harper fought a different battle. He stood before the full assembly, demanding support. "Earth now formally requests assistance under Protection Treaty Article 7, he announced. "The Draconian refugees have informed us of the approaching threat." The High Counselor shook his head. "I am sorry, Ambassador. Article 7 requires that the developing world demonstrate understanding of interstellar politics and threats. Your people learned about us mere days ago." "So you'll let Earth die over a technicality?" Kevin shouted, abandoning diplomatic protocol. Counselor Zexterra approached Kevin quietly after the session. "The Council cannot officially help," she whispered, "but there are other ways. Meet me in the archives in 1 hour." In Earth orbit, something strange happened. The Draconian ships, which had been parked in stable positions, suddenly began to move. They arranged themselves in a defensive formation around the planet. General Krav addressed world leaders again with urgent news. "Our long-range sensors have detected the Void Collective entering your solar system. It has already consumed the planet you call Pluto for raw materials. We have days, perhaps hours." The Secretary of Defense stood up. "What can we actually do against something that eats planets?" "Fight," Krav replied simply. "My remaining warriors will stand with Earth. We have 27 ships, not many, but they are battleships." "Against how many collective vessels?" asked the Chinese premier. Krav's pause was answer enough. In the mountain bunker, Alice had a breakthrough. She ran to the communication terminal, her face flushed with excitement. "I need to speak to General Krav immediately," she told the military operator. "I know how to disrupt the collective's neural network. It's not much, but it might buy us time." As she waited for the connection, satellite images appeared on the wall screens. Hundreds of strange, angular ships had appeared beyond Mars, their black surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Earth had 3 days before the Void Collective arrived. Ambassador Kevin Harper followed Counselor Zex Terra through the winding corridors of the Galactic Archives. The ancient library contained the collected knowledge of hundreds of civilizations spanning millions of years. The Council is bound by laws, Zex Terra explained in hushed tones, but those laws have gaps. They entered a secure room filled with glowing data crystals. Zex Terra placed her blue hand on a scanner. The wall shifted, revealing a hidden chamber. This section is restricted to senior counselors, she said. What I am about to show you violates several council regulations. A holographic display activated, showing Earth surrounded by strange symbols. Your world wasn't just protected, Zex Terra said. It was quarantined. Not to keep aliens out, but to keep humans contained. Kevin stared at the display. I don't understand. Humans are not native to Earth, Ambassador. Your ancestors were placed there 50,000 years ago, after the first war with the Void Collective. Kevin felt like the floor had dropped from beneath him. What? Your species was engineered by the ancients to fight the Collective. Human minds developed differently, chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. Patterns the Collective could not easily assimilate. You were the perfect weapons. On Earth, preparations for the coming battle intensified. Colonel Ben Wright coordinated global defense forces from a command center in Geneva. Draconian military advisors demonstrated how to modify Earth weapons to be more effective against the Collective. Aim for these junction points, a Draconian warrior named Grax explained, pointing to a diagram. They connect the individual units of the Collective. Ben nodded, though he knew their weapons would have minimal impact. We'll need more than rifles and missiles to stop this thing. We know, Grax replied grimly, but every little helps. In the mountain bunker, Dr. Alice Winters worked feverishly alongside Thex. They had connected human brain scanning equipment to draconian biological computers. The chaos theory is correct, Thex confirmed, examining the results. Human neural patterns include randomness that the Collective cannot predict or process effectively. Alice pushed her hair from her face. So we need to amplify that randomness. Create some kind of signal that broadcasts human thought patterns. Exactly. A neural disruptor. Vex manipulated the equipment with his clawed hands. But we would need tremendous power to broadcast such a signal throughout the solar system. Alice's eyes widened. The global satellite network. If we could reprogram every communication satellite to transmit simultaneously. Steve Rodriguez had been officially assigned as liaison to the Draconian command ship. He stood on its bridge, watching as General Crab directed defense preparations. The first wave will target your planetary defense systems, Crab explained, such as they are. And the second wave? Steve asked. Harvesters. They land and begin processing organic matter, converting it. Steve felt sick at the thought. Converting it to what? More collective. Crab turned to face him. Your people do not fully understand. The Collective is not just ships. Everything it touches becomes part of it. Plants, animals, people, all transformed into extensions of its network. A junior officer interrupted them. General, human scientists report a potential defense. Something about neural disruption. Crab's eyes narrowed. Get me details immediately. In the Galactic Council archives, Kevin Harper struggled to process what he had learned. If humans were engineered to fight the Collective, why were we abandoned on Earth? Why let us forget our purpose? Zex Terra's bioluminescence dimmed. The war was devastating. Trillions died. When the Collective finally retreated to dark space, the Council decided your kind was too dangerous to allow free reign in the galaxy. You were weapons that could not be unmade. So they dumped us on Earth to forget our past, Kevin said bitterly, and placed the planet under protection to monitor your development. Zex Terra activated another display. But now, the Collective has returned, and humans may be the only species with the innate ability to resist it. The display showed a hidden vault deep in the archives. This contains technology your ancestors used against the collective. Technically, I cannot give it to you. Zexterra stepped back. But perhaps I will become distracted for the next few minutes. Kevin understood. As Zexterra walked away, he approached the vault, heart pounding. Inside lay humanity's forgotten legacy, and perhaps Earth's only hope. Strange metal containers fell from the sky all over Earth. They crashed into oceans, forests, deserts, and fields with no apparent pattern. Military teams rushed to secure these objects, expecting weapons from the approaching enemy. Instead, they found gifts. "This is incredible," Commander Lisa Jenkins said, examining the contents of a container recovered from the Atlantic Ocean. Inside were data crystals containing advanced technology schematics, shield generators, energy weapons, and defensive systems. Similar reports came in from around the world. Russia found propulsion technology. China discovered communication systems beyond anything humans had imagined. Brazil received medical technology. In Washington, D.C., General Krav met with world leaders to explain. "These are not from my people," he said, examining a data crystal. "This level of technology is restricted by Galactic Council law. No one is permitted to share it with developing worlds." The U.S. president frowned. Then who sent it? Krav's scaled face formed what might have been a smile. Someone who understands that laws must sometimes be broken to preserve life. Around the world, scientists and engineers worked frantically to understand and implement the alien technology. Dr. Alice Winters led a global team via video conference from her bunker. "The schematics are designed for our level of technology," she explained to the assembled experts. "It's like they were simplified specifically, so we could understand them quickly." A Chinese scientist nodded on screen. "Yes, and they use materials we already have. Whoever sent these wanted us to build them immediately." In orbit, the Draconian fleet repositioned, creating a defensive screen around Earth. General Krav had offered something unexpected. The remaining Draconian warriors would pilot their warships alongside human crews in Earth's defense. Steve Rodriguez found himself assigned to the Draconian flagship, learning to operate weapon systems designed for hands twice the size of human ones. "Your species adapts quickly," his Draconian instructor noted after Steve mastered a targeting system in hours rather than days. "We've had practice," Steve replied. "Humans are good at figuring things out when our backs are against the wall." In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Kevin Harper faced growing hostility. Many representatives suspected Earth's sudden technological leap had outside help, a serious violation of Council law. "We have received reports of restricted technology appearing on Earth," the High Counselor stated. "Do you know anything about this, Ambassador Harper?" Kevin maintained his composure. "My planet faces extinction, High Counselor. We will use any means necessary to survive." "Even illegal technology transfer could not save you," a reptilian counselor sneered. "Your primitive species cannot possibly master advanced systems in time." Kevin smiled thinly. "You might be surprised what humans can do when motivated." Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded throughout the council station. The central display activated, showing the Void Collective fleet accelerating toward Earth. They would arrive in less than 24 hours. "The council session is suspended," the High Counselor announced. "All non-essential personnel evacuate to shelter areas immediately." As council members rushed to leave, Counselor Zexterra approached Kevin. "Did you find what you needed in the archives?" she asked quietly. Kevin nodded. "I've transmitted everything to Earth, but even with advanced technology, we're outnumbered. We need more help." "The Council will not officially intervene," Zexterra reminded him. "I'm not asking for the Council," Kevin replied. "I'm asking for you, and anyone else who understands what's at stake. If Earth falls, the Collective gains the secret to assimilating human minds. Nothing will stop it then." Back on Earth, the first human-built alien technology activated. A shield generator in Australia created a blue energy dome over Sydney. Similar shields appeared over other major cities as the technology was replicated worldwide. In the Rockies bunker, Dr. Winter's team completed the neural disruptor prototype. It works in the lab, she told General Krav via video link. But we need to test it against actual collective units. You'll have that opportunity soon enough, Krav replied grimly. Our sensors show the first collective scouts entering Earth's orbital path. The main fleet follows close behind. Colonel Ben Wright adjusted his uniform and addressed the combined human draconian forces at the Geneva Command Center. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every free being in the galaxy. Remember your training, trust your allies, and know this: humans don't give up. It's not in our DNA. Around the world, people prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. The sky darkened as the Void Collective arrived. Their ships blocked the sun over major cities worldwide, casting enormous shadows across the land. Unlike the sleek draconian vessels, these were angular, asymmetrical constructions that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The first attack came without warning. Black beams sliced through Earth's atmosphere, targeting military installations and power plants. The newly installed shield generators flared blue as they absorbed the energy, straining but holding. In orbit, the combined human draconian fleet engaged the first wave of collective ships. Lieutenant Olivia Garcia led Blue Squadron, a mixed group of Earth fighter pilots flying modified jets equipped with alien technology. Blue Squadron, form up, she ordered over the radio. Remember your training. These things follow predictable patterns. Her squad executed a series of wild, unpredictable maneuvers that confused the collective targeting systems. The human pilots relied on instinct and improvisation, qualities the logical collective struggled to counter. It's working, shouted Olivia's wingman as his weapons found their mark. A collective scout ship splintered into fragments. On the Draconian flagship, Steve Rodriguez monitored the battle alongside General Krav. The main view screen showed hundreds of collective vessels entering the system, far more than they had anticipated. There are too many, Steve whispered. Krav's scaled face remained impassive. Numbers are not everything in war, human. Your pilots fight in ways the collective cannot predict. This gives us an advantage. Below, on Earth's surface, the collective deployed harvester units, massive, spider-like machines that landed in populated areas and began the assimilation process. Buildings, vehicles, even plants were broken down and converted into more collective material. Colonel Ben Wright coordinated ground forces from Geneva. Target the junction points, he reminded his troops worldwide. Don't waste ammunition on the outer shells. Soldiers armed with modified weapons fired at the specific weak points identified by draconian intelligence. Many harvesters fell, but for each one destroyed, 3 more landed. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Dr. Alice Winters activated the neural disruptor. The device hummed to life, broadcasting human thought patterns amplified to frequencies that interfered with the collective's network. Nearby harvesters stumbled, their movements becoming erratic. It works, Alice exclaimed, but the range is limited, only about 5 miles. Thex, her draconian partner, nodded. We need to distribute smaller versions globally. Every disruption weakens their connection. As the battle raged, Ambassador Kevin Harper addressed the Galactic Council one final time. He stood tall despite his exhaustion, facing the assembled representatives. I am broadcasting Earth's defense in real time, he announced, activating a holographic display that showed the ongoing battle. My people fight not just for themselves, but for all free beings. Yet you sit here, bound by rules written in peace, while trillions of lives hang in the balance. The council chamber was silent as they watched humans, a species many had dismissed as primitive, fighting with unexpected effectiveness against a threat that had terrified advanced civilizations into inaction. The collective cannot be defeated by conventional means, the High Counselor stated. Even with stolen technology, Earth will fall. Perhaps, Kevin conceded, but we will not fall quietly. And when the collective comes for your worlds next, strengthened by whatever it learns from consuming humanity, Remember that you chose to do nothing. As he turned to leave, an unexpected voice spoke up. I move to reclassify this situation as a Class 1 galactic emergency, said Counselors Ex Terra. This supersedes protection protocols and authorizes immediate intervention. Other counselors began to voice support. The momentum shifted as more representatives stood, moved by Earth's desperate courage. Back on Earth, the tide of battle was turning against humanity. Shields began to fail as power grids collapsed. The orbital fleet suffered heavy losses. On the ground, harvester units pushed deeper into major cities. In New York, a group of civilians armed with makeshift weapons fought alongside soldiers against a massive harvester. Among them was a young woman named Amy Foster, who had refused evacuation to help defend her neighborhood. As the harvester cornered them in a collapsed building, Amy noticed something strange. The machine hesitated when she screamed in fear and anger. It seemed confused by her emotional outburst. They can't handle strong emotions, she realized, remembering news reports about the neural disruptor. Everyone, yell, sing, anything. The trapped humans began shouting, creating a cacophony of emotional noise. The harvester stuttered, its systems true. The arrival of the Galactic Council fleet changed everything. Their advanced weapons tore through the collective ships with ease, creating gaps in the enemy formation. Human and Draconian vessels quickly exploited these openings, coordinating their attacks with newfound allies. On the Council flagship, Ambassador Kevin Harper stood beside the High Counselor, watching the battle unfold on enormous holographic displays. The Council voted unanimously, the High Counselor explained. First time in 3,000 years. We officially classify ourselves as observers in this conflict to maintain legal protocols. But observers with very big guns. Kevin smiled grimly. Thank you. But will it be enough? The High Counselor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Alone, no. But we are not fighting alone anymore. On Earth, civilians had discovered what Amy Foster learned in New York. The collective struggled to process human emotions. People gathered in groups around harvesters, shouting, singing, and expressing the full range of human feeling. The confused machines faltered, giving military units time to target their weak points. Dr. Alice Winters worked with global broadcast networks to share this discovery and amplify its effect. Television and radio stations worldwide began broadcasting music with strong emotional content. The neural disruptor's range expanded as millions of receivers carried its signal. In orbit, Lieutenant Olivia Garcia's Blue Squadron joined with Draconian fighters and Council interceptors to create a mixed unit unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human unpredictability, Draconian precision, and Council technology combined to devastating effect. Target the command node, Olivia ordered as they approached the largest collective vessel. Steve's intel says it's coordinating the harvesters. Her squadron executed a series of impossible maneuvers that no logical being would attempt. The collective defenses, designed to counter known attack patterns, could not adapt quickly enough. Their weapons found their mark. The massive collective command ship began breaking apart, its connection to the ground units temporarily severed. On the surface, Colonel Ben Wright led a final push against the weakened harvesters. Soldiers armed with modified weapons fought alongside civilians wielding makeshift tools. Every person had a role to play, some fighting directly, others creating emotional noise to confuse the enemy. Keep pushing, Ben shouted as his unit advanced through Chicago's downtown. They're losing coordination. One by one, the harvesters fell. Those that remained began retreating to their landing craft, attempting to escape a fight they could no longer win. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Dr. Winters and Thex monitored the battle from their screens. The collective is retreating, Thex announced, his voice containing the draconian equivalent of disbelief. I never thought I would see this day. Alice squeezed his scaled hand. It's not over yet. They'll be back once they adapt. Yes, Thex agreed. But next time, we will be ready. 3 days after the battle began, the last collective ship fled from Earth's solar system. The combined fleet, human, Draconian, and Council, did not pursue. They had won the day, but everyone knew this was just the first clash in a longer war. 1 month later, the Galactic Council convened a special session. The High Counselor stood before the assembled representatives, more solemn than usual. "Today we address a historic change," he announced. "Earth has demonstrated qualities that demand recognition. Therefore, by unanimous vote, we officially reclassify Earth as a Class 3 emerging interstellar power." The chamber buzzed with conversation. Such a jump from Class 5 to Class 3 was unprecedented. Ambassador Kevin Harper, now joined by a small staff of human assistants, accepted the new credentials with dignity. "Earth thanks the Council for this recognition," he said. "We look forward to working together against our common enemy." As he spoke, various representatives whispered among themselves. The humans had accomplished in days what took most species centuries, developing space combat capabilities, adapting alien technology, and most importantly, proving themselves valuable allies. Back on Earth, reconstruction had begun. Draconian refugees worked alongside humans to rebuild damaged cities. Their advanced knowledge, combined with human creativity, promised a new era of development. In what remained of New York, Amy Foster helped coordinate volunteer efforts. A small Draconian child approached her, offering a piece of fruit from his homeworld. "My father says you are very brave," the child said in careful English. "He says humans saved everyone." Amy smiled and accepted the gift. "We all saved each other. That's what allies do." Around the world, new monuments appeared with the same inscription in multiple languages, Earth and alien alike.